Gwendolyn Brooks' poem "The Bean Eaters" was published in the year 1960. The poem is a description of a couple and their simple act of eating beans. It slowly presents the monotonous routine of the couple's life together while giving particular details of experience. The beginning of the poem establishes the subject and tone of what is to follow. In one short line, we discover that it is an aged couple the speaker is describing. It also represents the two as old in the same way paper turns as it ages. It could allude to sickness, jaundice, as we don't normally think of yellow skin as a sign of health. The line also establishes the subject we expect from the title, a meal of beans. It becomes clear that this event is intended to, as the word mostly prevents a reader from thinking this is a one-time event. In lines 2 to 4, we get the first end rhyme of the poem, though it is the only time the first and second lines of any stanza will rhyme. This could be a gesture by Brooks to help reader into the poem with a swing or rhythm which propels one right in. The poem continues to add context to the event of eating through the words casual and plain, reinforcing the idea of the couple living simply and in possible poverty. The rhymes continue in line 3 with chipware echoing the pair and affair of lines 1 and 2 respectively. The poem continues its second stanza by offering a judgment on the couple, saying that they are mostly good. It is interesting to note Brooks' decision to not overrate the goodness of the people, idealizing them in some way. Instead, she uses the modifier mostly. Notice how this word efficiently softens the claim of the couple's goodness, while at the same time connecting the second stanza with the first, where the word mostly was first used. The rhythms and connections uses anaphora to link it with line 5. This line goes on to verify the feeling of soberness in the poem by explaining that the couple are no longer fully active or engaged with their lives. Their having lived their day could even be taken more harshly to mean that they are no longer really living at all, but are simply waiting for their everyday routine to end. The rudimentary nature of the couple's living is described in further detail as Brooks employs repetition again to link lines. The rhythm of putting on their clothes and putting things away continues the musical cadence already established and also gives the impression of a certain monotony in the daily lives of the two. The use of the word there, which could be taken to imply that the two have been together for so long that they have become one entity. There exists some small hope in the ability of the two. It could be argued that "but keep on" reveals an element of survival even in the midst of putting things away. The poem seems to ready itself for some revelation or insight. The short two-word line, the introduction of the act of remembering, and the ellipsis which causes the line to trail off and pause can be seen as working together to reveal the bittersweet reality of the couple. It is the act of remembering that seems to be the couple's real activity. The speaker hints at the bittersweet nature of the memories by mentioning the twinklings and the twinges that accompany. Brooks again uses repetition to provide rhythm and emphasis to the idea of remembering that is so essential to the poem. She also continues the musical flow with the use of alliteration, the repeating of the ta sound. Whatever hope or joyful memories the couple might have seemed insignificant in the presence of the final two lines of the poem, the couple lean over with what might be fatigue. They are in a rented back room full of what we assume to be objects collected and put away over the years, and in this setting they seem to have almost nothing. Notice that they do not own the place where they live and eat, but only rent. And very important is the fact that the event of eating a meal, often in literature a symbol of health and even holiness, is reduced here to an experience of personal scarcity in the back of the house amidst material clutter. It could be argued that the two people are together, that they are eating at all, might carry an implication of holiness. Brooks does choose to keep the poem lively in its tempo and rhythm, and even ends the poem with what could be considered a decorative word, rhyming fringes with twinges. This provides a good example of how a poem can balance itself by having the form, the rhythm and movement of the language counteract content or subject matter. It is possible that Brooks chose to keep the poem from becoming too sad by crafting a movement and musical language which can be seen as. The force of this poem comes from making the reader feel sympathy for the old couple and their attachment to their past. Their current life is shown to be unpleasant and shabby, as evidenced by the plain chipped dinnerware, creaking wood, tin flatware, the rented back room, and of course the inelegant sustenance. To accept the indignity of their circumstances, it only makes sense for the reader to look at the splendor of their past life. But where is the splendor? Brooks does not contrast the couple's current downtrodden circumstances with beauty and elegance, as we might expect, but with commonplace, mundane articles, including in the short space she allows for this list such disposables as receipts and tobacco crumbs. After Brooks devotes so much of the poem to the couple's current lives, the reader expects to hear of their memories, especially after the line, remembering with twinklings and twinges. Brooks does not directly show us the memories, but they are presented with more force in this poem by their absence because we only see their causes and effects. The effects are that they make the old couple feel comfortable with their current state. Their memories are caused by little simple things too personal for anyone but themselves to appreciate. Beads, for example, are not inherently wonderful, but the reader believes they are so because of the wonderful effect they have on the old couple. The items are lens looking into the past. We can see the lens, we can see them looking through it, but we cannot see what they see. If we could see the memories that these old people cherish, we might be unimpressed, but the important thing here is their opinion. Despite the poverty, readers sense a feeling of pride about them, that they might once have been members of higher social class in the second line, with the phrase dinner is a casual affair. Not only is this a comic understatement of their circumstances, but calling a meal of beans off of broken dishes with cheap flatware casual tells that this couple is used to being polite and having social grace. Regardless of what a reader might think of their situation, they still have dignity and a sense of honor. Brooks raises doubts about whether their self esteem is justified in the fifth line with the qualifier mostly. On the one hand, she may be indicated to deserve respect and attention, even though they are not saintly and are in fact less than perfect. But a more troubling interpretation is that they are being pretentious by acting so dignified without being as good as they can be. According to this interpretation, the objects in the back room that are the source of their pride are cheap substitutes for truly worthy items. Another clue that they are overestimating their place in the world or putting on airs is the description of the old pair as yellow. If they were presented metaphorically by paper, this would be sign of age. If the poem were written in slang, the implication might be that the couple is cowardly. Even more inconsistent with the tone of the poem would be to associate this word to the term Orientals. In the narrow scope of African American slang, the dialect that Brooks grew up with, moved among yellow, is used to describe someone who is light skinned, sometimes a source of prestige, especially when it allows them to go beyond their oppressed community and pass as white. There is no other evidence in the poem that these people are African American, but this interpretation is consistent with the idea that they have an elevated